Hi, I'm Kim Kiyosaki. I'm also known as the Queen of Cashflow. And welcome to another segment. Thrilled to have you watching this YouTube video, another segment of Keys to the Cashflow game. The reason Robert and I created the Cashflow board game is because people kept asking us, how did we get out of the rat race of life and onto the fast track? So we thought, wouldn't it be fun, wouldn't it be entertaining and educational if we could create a game that teaches people how to do that? So that is the purpose behind the game. And as you play the cash flow game more and more, you're going to learn the language of money. You're going to learn the language of investing. And especially when you're playing with other people, the dynamics, the education that comes from watching other people's behaviors, watching other people's strategies, it's a complete learning environment. So please play the game often. Play it as many times as you can possibly play, because the more you play the cash flow game, the better your financial decisions will be in life. One of the most important terms an investor is looking for is a thing called ROI, which stands for return on investment. So you'll see on our small deal and big deal cards when it comes to real estate and business, there's a thing here called ROI, return on investment. Why is that so important? That's probably the most important thing an investor focuses on. So ROI, return on investment, very simply is this. Let's say I buy a $100,000 house. My down payment, my cash out of pocket, is $10,000, 10%. And let's say every year I make $1,000 a year profit, cash flow, positive cash flow on that property. So the formula for ROI is your down payment, your cash out of pocket, divided by your annual positive cash flow. And that gives you your ROI. So in this case, we put down $10,000. We have $1,000 a year coming in. That means our ROI, our return on investment, is 10%. So there's one very important piece to learn when you're actually in the real world looking at properties. Because when you get your numbers, your income and expenses of a property, figure out the debt of the property, those numbers are numbers today. What you really want to look at is what can you do with this property to increase your return on investment. So here's a question I get often. In our cash flow game, here's a deal, condo for sale, with a negative ROI, a negative 24% ROI. Why would anybody buy a negative cash flow deal? It's a really good question. And for me, there's only one reason why I would even consider a negative cash flow deal to start. And the only reason is because I know my team can turn this property around, because if it's a negative cash flow, there is something going wrong with this property. Whether it's the income, the expenses, the way the debt is structured, there's something wrong with this property. So if I look at the property and if my team can figure out how to turn around this property and turn it into a positive cash flow, then it could be a very good deal. So just because the numbers today say it's negative, the question to ask is, what could I do? Or how can I, remember from Rich Dad, Poor Dad? It's not, I can't afford it, it's how can I afford it? If you find a property with a negative cash flow, the question to ask is, how can I turn this into a profitable cash flowing property? And maybe the answer is you can't. And that's okay, then you walk away. But don't get blinded to a negative cash flow. One final point I want to make on negative cash flow properties. And this is in the world of taxes. And I remember hearing a lot about this when we were in Australia. They called it negative gearing. And accountants were actually, financial advisors were actually advising their clients to buy negative cash flow properties for tax purposes. I would never, ever do that. I would never, ever do that. If I'm going to put my money into an investment, I want that money to make money. I don't want that money to lose money. So I would never buy a property, and our tax advisor, Tom Millwright, would never advise us to buy a property or any type of business investment for tax purposes only. For me, the reason I'm going to invest in real estate, in businesses, in whatever it is because I want my money working hard for me. So understand, if you're looking at properties, you're looking at a business and you get the existing numbers today, and if it's negative, it may not be a good deal, but don't get blindsided to go, oh, it's negative, I don't want to do this deal. I do an exercise in some of my seminars with women, and the property has a negative cash flow. But in the exercise, we look at what we can do and how we can turn it around to a positive cash flow. So taking a negative cash flow, which is a liability, and turning it into an asset, which is a positive cash flow, it takes experience, it takes study, it takes real life experience, it takes a team. So it all comes together, and the more you play the cash flow game, the more your intelligence, financial intelligence goes up, the better your ability in the actual real world to make better financial decisions and to turn a negative cash flow deal into a positive cash flow deal. But also remember, not all deals are created equal. So a negative cash flow deal today still may not be a great deal. You may want to walk away, but don't shut your mind to the possibility of how can I create a positive cash flow deal, giving me a positive ROI, return on investment. Thank you. So if you like these videos, please like and subscribe and click on the notification bell for further updates. And if you'd like to find or join a cash flow club, please click on the link below.